Hi, my name is Marcia Stromgren, and you've tuned in to Just the Facts. I have in the studio today Chad Walsh, who is running for the county sheriff in St. Louis County. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Now, Chad, you ran in the primary, but you didn't win, and so you are doing a write-in campaign. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. A write-in campaign.
So, on the ballot, the two challengers, their names will be on there, but if people want to vote for you, they just put it in, and I saw the ballot the other day, so there's a little slot that says write in, so they can write in Chad Walsh.
Yes, so there will be the two names, and then there will be a line that says write in with a line underneath it. All they got to do is write the name. It doesn't need to be perfect. They don't need to fill the bubble in. The statute calls for a lot of leniency in this area, as in, what was the intent? If they put Chad Walsh and they spell it wrong, it's okay.
Okay, so now maybe some people don't know much about you. So let's start with a little background.
Yes, a little background about Chad Walsh. Great question. Born and raised Hermantown, Minnesota. Graduated from Hermantown High School. As soon as I graduated, I left for the U.S. Army. Spent several years in the Army as a military police officer. Been stationed all over the world. Came back here, left the Army. Took a job in South Dakota as a law enforcement officer for a few more years. Moved back up here and met my wife. We started a couple businesses. One of them's union, one's non-union. So we do employ several personnel. Currently work for the Moose Lake Police Department, so I am an active law enforcement officer in the state of Minnesota. And that's a quick rundown about Chad Walsh.
Now, you are not currently a police officer in St. Louis County.
No,
okay.
No, I am not. So I'll just clarify that. I do work in Carleton County. The Minnesota statute to run for sheriff is you must be a law enforcement officer in the state of Minnesota in order to run or have an active license to run for sheriff.
What is the duty of the sheriff's office when you become elected?
So the sheriff and the deputies have a different duty. The sheriff is elected by the people and answers directly to the people. Unlike a chief of police, the deputies have a different duty. Their duty is to carry out writs and traffic enforcement and law enforcement in the county, not in the city. The sheriff is responsible for the sheriff's department, and like I said, the sheriff's number one responsibility is to protect the rights of the people of St. Louis County. The second thing is to provide a peaceful county.
So, as the sheriff, can you intervene in a dispute that comes? Say, like somebody lives in the city of Duluth, which is it's still in the county, but it's not within the jurisdiction of the Duluth Police Department. Is there any role that you have in intervening on behalf of that person if they come to you and ask for help?
Yes. So if a citizen in a city or outside of a city has a problem, and people need to understand that the sheriff's office, the sheriff itself, is a constitutional office set forth. And there's a reason for that, because it's the checks and balances is what the sheriff is supposed to provide for the citizens. So if you have a complaint, whether that's against your local police department, another citizen, elected official, you have the right to go to the sheriff and ask for assistance in that.
Would that include the state patrol as well?
Yes, it would. If you have a problem with any form of law enforcement, you can go to your elected sheriff, and the sheriff can help you out with that.
You know, I don't believe too many people realize that. And when I've been talking about that, they're quite surprised.
Yes,
So,
it's not that the sheriff has jurisdiction over them, But the sheriff is an elected official by the people and answers directly to the people. I want to make that real clear. So if you do have a problem with another form of law enforcement, you have to have some form of grievance to grievance your government. And the sheriff will probably tell you, have you gone to that local law enforcement agency and filed your grievance there? You know, you want to do your First Avenue there.
Right.
And if that don't work, then you have a right to go to the next step, which would be the sheriff of the county. Yes.
Okay, so now I hope everybody understands that, because when I found out about it, I went, I've not heard this before. I'm sure most of you haven't either. So why do you really want to be the sheriff?
So I get that question a lot, Chad. Why are you running for sheriff? I'm running for sheriff because we all got to experience COVID. And during COVID, law enforcement was weaponized against us, we the people. It was. It was used against the people versus protecting us. So I said, I will never allow this to happen again as long as I have an opportunity to make a difference. The sheriff has that power. When your government comes down and says you can't go to church or you can't peacefully assemble or do those things, your sheriff has the power to stand up and say, no, that's the Constitution protects those rights, and those are God-given rights. They're not rights that the government gives us. Everybody thinks that the Constitution gives us these rights. They don't. They are God-given. We are born with them. Our founding fathers made it real clear that no man gives us those rights and no government can take them away. So when the government decides that you can't go to church or you can't peacefully assemble, the sheriff has the power to stand up for you. A lot of folks don't know that.
Now you've been in Moose Lake as a police officer for how long?
2020 I started in Moose Lake.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's in my third year.
Okay. Have you seen, I was talking to somebody the other day, have you seen, in fact she's a candidate, have you seen more crime creeping up from the lower part of Minnesota or other parts, other states and so forth? Crime increasing in your area that may not have been there, say, when you first started?
Yes, we see a lot of crime that it comes up here. I will tell you, Moose Lake's a small town. We're very tight-knit down there. We know everybody. It's a different atmosphere than in St. Louis County. In St. Louis County, and I'm going to say this, and it's the truth, we have some form of lawlessness in St. Louis County. And
I don't disagree, yes.
We need and we expect our elected officials not to act the way they've been acting. And the people have had enough. So we need somebody to represent us, we the people, and stand up for us and say that's not what we want. And I've heard from thousands of citizens throughout this county that they don't want the lawlessness. We don't have lawlessness in Moose Lake. We have a small, tight-knit community that everybody gets involved, and that's very important. But as you get farther north, you find that that's not so much so.
Well, and I was talking with a woman at a store that I was at. She saw my button that I had, and she said she was from Carleton County, and then she said that you were an officer in Moose Lake, and she was quite pleased from what she's been hearing about you from that respect. So your name is out before you. And you got into this race a little on the earlier side than most, up on the range and whatnot. How have you been received by the people?
So I've heard that a lot. Chad, why did you get into the race so early? There are 199,000 citizens in St. Louis County. The sheriff represents everybody. How can you do that commitment without getting out there and listening to the people on what they would like to see out of their sheriff? What are their concerns? What are their issues that they're having? You can't do that in the 5 or 6 months they give you to run a campaign. You have to get out there and actually listen to the people, meet the people, and understand, okay, these are their issues. This is what they would like to see fixed. Can we fix them? Can we not fix them? So that's why I did start so early.
Can you tell me what some of those main issues were from the people?
The issues they tend from, one of the major issues is people want their rights protected. What we're living in right now is not the America that you grew up in or I grew up in, and people are really starting to notice that. And I'm just going to say it, it's true. It's not. And people are nervous. They want to know that that elected official, the sheriff, is going to stand up for them. The other thing is they want to feel safe in their area, their community. And people don't feel safe. They don't. They may feel safe right this minute, but if you ask them, if you go for a walk at 8 o'clock tonight, do you feel safe? And 99% of them are going to say no. You know, especially in the city of Duluth. Ask yourself, do you feel safe in the city of Duluth? No. People don't feel safe. So we got to do something about that. That's a huge thing, is people want to feel safe. They want their rights protected, and they want to feel safe in their communities.
Well, and I've seen reports, and there was just another shooting in Duluth last week up on First Street. More and more shootings are going on. A lot of that used to be, well, actually, kind of the area. I grew up in Piedmont Heights, but the west end of Duluth, which is now Lincoln Park. Lots of drugs and crime out there. But many years ago, when I was counseling with a young man who was deeply troubled about different things, he used to live on 3rd Street, which is just up the hill here, and over by Central High School. And all of a sudden, I heard these shots.
Oh.
And, you know, we're talking, I don't know, between 12 and 15 years ago. And so that goes on all the time. He lived on the upper side of 3rd Street, right in that area. Well, then there was a woman, Crawford Funeral Home, who they no longer own that place. She had an apartment above the business. She actually had a shot go through the window where she was living. So there's been gun violence in Duluth, but now you're hearing about it more and more and more.
Yes, I'm just gonna answer a little bit more of the question before that and to lead into what you're talking about. The other thing that I've heard from the communities is people want to know what their law enforcement does, and they want to have transparency. They want to know what goes on in their areas, and they don't have that. They don't have that from today's law enforcement administrations in northern Minnesota. Everything is so secretive. People have a right to know. You know, you're talking about them shootings. The Duluth Police Department should be notifying everybody in that area about what's going on. You have a right to know, to protect yourself. And that's one of the huge things that I've been out campaigning for 2 years on, is let's get you involved. People want to know what's going on. They want the transparency. And then they also want the flip side to that, is they want accountability. You know, why didn't you do so? Why didn't they do this, Chad? Or why wasn't this handled like this? And I hear that over and over. Can you tell me why, when I go down to the, I'm going to say it, down to the sheriff's department, and I ask for this, that nothing gets done? These are huge issues in the county that I've encountered.
What are some of the other issues that people are concerned about besides their safety?
Yes, I'm gonna hit on it a little bit more, is the accountability. We have great law enforcement, but with that, we need to know that the people that are managing the law enforcement are also looking out for the best interest of the public when it comes to accountability and how we treat the public. That is another huge complaint I've heard from the public, how law enforcement treats us. And that needs a change. That's a culture change is what it is. And it starts at the top and it works its way down. And that needs to happen.
Well, you know, I own a business, and we actually had a theft of a Mini Winnie on a Sunday afternoon, 6:30, broad daylight. And we expected the sheriff's office to get back to us with a report. To this day, they have not done that. And I called in and they do have the report waiting for me. I just need to take the time to go over and get it. But I just assumed, well, they'd call us back and say, here's what we found out. We do know that the owner's insurance company covered the whole thing, and he came right back in with the next Mini Winnie that he bought. Well, we've got it gated now. And not that that's a foolproof situation, but when we bought that business in 2007, we never had anything like that happen to us.
So it's funny you bring that up. I will tell you that within the last week, the last 7 days, I've had at least 10 people come to me with a similar story about, I was waiting for a follow-up from the sheriff's department, and I haven't received it, and I haven't received it for months. You know, and I will say this, first off, I want to apologize on behalf of law enforcement. That is one of our downfalls. We do not follow up, and that needs to change. If you have an incident at your business or your residence, we need to follow up with that. We need to follow all the way through, just like you do in your business for customer service. It's the beginning all the way to the end. The public is the customer of law enforcement. We are here to serve you. And that needs to be brought back to reality. That all the citizens of St. Louis County, if you live in a city, if you don't live in a city, or you live out in the county, we work for you. And we need to get this back to understanding that you are the customer.
Well, we talked about the citizens feeling safe. Is the St. Louis County Sheriff's Department understaffed?
Extremely understaffed. And I'm going to say this, you know, we spend money on a lot of different things when we should be spending money on staffing the Sheriff's Department, paying them what they're worth. Let's start there. And as I've said to several of the deputies, if you want a pay raise from the public, we need to show the public you're worth more money. That's a huge thing. You know, if you want to tell the public you're worth $45 or $50 an hour, let's show them you're worth that. You're very important. The taxpayers need to know that, okay, you know, I'm for law enforcement getting a raise because they do this and they do this and they put their lives on the line every day. But we haven't shown that, and we need to show that. Am I all for a raise? I'm all for them getting paid what they're worth. They're worth a lot more money than what they're getting paid right now. Are they understaffed? Extremely understaffed. You know, people are not going to come work for the Sheriff's Department at $23 an hour when they could go to McDonald's and work for $19 and never have to worry about getting shot at McDonald's.
Hopefully not.
Right? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
There's a huge problem there. So we need to fix that issue. We really do. And once again, that comes from the sheriff going to the public and getting the support of everybody in St. Louis County and say, hey, listen, you know, we want to do better. Help us get there. We can't do it by ourselves. We want to make more money. Help us get there. We need the help of everybody. It's not just you elect one person and they fix all the problems. It doesn't work that way. And I have to explain this to a lot of folks. I understand that you have complaints. Can we fix it? The answer is yes. We can fix it. We can fix it together, not just one person. It takes all of us.
So going on that, what are some of your suggestions for fixing some of these problems?
You know, if you want a raise, we need to get the public together and we need to fight for you to get a raise. That needs to happen. If we want more officers, we need to show that we are so understaffed that we need more officers. We need to show that to the public, because then the public will be on our side and help us get this accomplished. These are some huge things that have to happen. If you want to take the Sheriff's Department to the next level, you need a fresh perspective, kind of like I bring when I bring to my business. Somebody from the outside that understands how to market what we do. Right now, the public doesn't know what law enforcement does. And we're not marketing it to them. We're not telling them anything. There's
Well,
no transparency.
We certainly just discussed that quite well,
Yeah.
didn't we?
But don't worry, the news will point out all the bad things that we do. They will. That's not us. That's not law enforcement at all. We need to tell our side of the story. That's why we do need a fresh perspective. We need somebody that's going to represent the people and understand, and the people include the deputies. They're not excluded from this. They're part of it. So we need everybody to get on board in this. And it's not just relationships in law enforcement. It's relationships with our communities. The transparency to what's going on. The transparency as to what we do in your community. We don't have that. We don't have that at all. The transparency as to the sheriff is going to stand up for us. I can lay my head down on my bed, on my pillow every night knowing that the sheriff will protect my God-given rights. That they took an oath to do that, and they will be that person. That this is very important things we have to address. And when I talk about addressing them, one of the things I'm going to do is we are going to have a public relations department. That's a communication side. Then you have a separate side to that, which would be public engagement. There's two sides to it, right? Public relations is the communication side. When you want that follow-up, we need to give you that follow-up. That's the public relations side of it, right?
Right.
The public engagement side is us coming out to your business and saying, okay, I'm your deputy in the area. Let's do a security check. Let's understand what you need here. And here's what we're doing for you. This is important. Yes, we're not just here to enforce the law, but we're here to make sure all the businesses in our county and all the people in our county feel safe and that they know we're out there and we're doing stuff for them. This is a step above and beyond what we're already doing. When we get there, the people are more apt to get on board to say, yeah, we support that raise. We support the more deputies because they can't get to my business because there isn't enough deputies out there. Or they can't make it to my call for 45 minutes because there's not enough people working. This is how we get the public involved.
About how many deputies down is St. Louis County right now?
St. Louis County is working on the same numbers from 1970.
No,
Yes. How do you like that?
I don't, and
Have we-
I'm quite astounded. 1970, that's how many years ago?
Exactly.
That
That doesn't even make any sense,
no,
does
it doesn't.
No, we expand everything. And we might you might be able to hire, with the retirements, you might have 15 people a year retiring. Well, if you're only replacing 7 or 8 of those 15 a year, eventually it's going where? The other direction. So we need to get up with the times. There's 199,000 citizens in St. Louis County, and I understand there's a lot of cities that have their own law enforcement, but there's a lot of county too.
Oh yes, we're one of the largest in the United States.
We are, yes. And 103 sworn deputies working the road, that's not a lot.
I can understand why the PR, public relations, is really out the window, because you're understaffed, which is causing this major problem of not being able to be in touch with your area, your people, your citizens.
And with that being said, I hear about the jails. We can't arrest people for certain things. The jails can't house them because we don't have enough. That is all part of understaffing. And it's all part of management. We need to manage correctly. And we need the budget to do so. And that comes from the other side also. That comes from the sheriff getting the backing of the people and selling it to the people. This is what we need.
Just touching on jails. Now, I know there's one on the Haynes Road. Is that a city or county facility there?
That's a county facility. The county sheriff is in charge of all the jails of St. Louis County.
How many are there?
There are 2. There's one up on the range that is a housing facility. It just houses people. And then there's an actual jail down here.
And they're full.
And they're full, yes.
And the crime rate is going up.
It is going up. We need to address this. It needs to be brought to the people's attention, and it's not. Back to that public relations side. And this starts with the sheriff.
So, if the two jails in this huge county are full, what are we doing with these criminals?
Well, if we can't house them, we house them out of county, and we pay for that too. And it costs a lot of money.
I'm sure that it is expensive
It's very expensive.
because you have to transport them down to that jail. Then if they come to trial, they have to come back up here, so transportation again. Oh my.
It's a huge task, and it's a huge dollar amount. But once again, back to the transparency. We need to be filling the public in about what is really going on. And why do we have lawlessness? What is causing this? And how do we fix it?
And I take it you have some ideas.
I have a lot of ideas on how to fix it, and I'm going to say this. Some of those ideas are holding our elected officials accountable for what they said they're going to do.
Well, that sounds like a start.
That is a huge start, yes.
Well, we're almost out of time, and so is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to say to the voters? And, you know, there comes a time when you have to take some responsibility for your actions, and that is voting on November 8th. You need to make the right choices because they ultimately affect your safety in the case of the sheriff's department, but also your future as a country that basically has enjoyed freedom for many, many years. I'm thinking now after the last few years that some of those freedoms have been stepped on violently, as Chad has mentioned, but you really need to think about your vote. So November 8th is coming very quickly. And Chad, well, thank you. Thank you for coming in. I know you're very busy, so thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.